Etzel,
Hey, I'm Derek.
and welcome
Welcome
to
to
the
Unpopular
Unpopular
View.
View.
Hey, man, how you been doing?
Surviving in a hostile world, brother. You know how it is.
You always say that.
Yes, indeed.
Hey, man, so we've kicked around a lot of things lately. Uh, I was reading the other day that South Dakota has got I guess it's the highest per capita. They have a very high percentage of COVID cases, and I do believe COVID uh, deaths in their state. One of the smaller states, did a little more reading, found out that there is a Republican governor there who the whole time has taken pretty much a hands-off approach on whether or not people should wear a mask, not wear masks, social distance or not, or should certain establishments, be forced to scale back their operations or their attendance or things. She hasn't done anything, and it's been pretty much her point of view that like I can't make or I shouldn't make people do something against their will. So what catches me off guard with this is, okay, this thing is real. Right now we're looking at over 250,000 people have lost their life. We're obviously well into, I want to say, I'm not going to quote numbers, but we're several times that, up in the millions of active cases of people that have had the virus and obviously have survived, or that have the virus now and they've been diagnosed with it, and they are still alive. But this thing is real, man. Like I say, I don't know about you. I have lost a family member. Now, he had some other health issues, and COVID probably didn't do anything to his favor, but I've lost a cousin, so it's real to me. There's a buddy of mine that I actually know, okay, that has lost his life as well. So, it's not, to me, it's not just somebody in the state, another city, somebody next door. It's real. And every day I still walk around and I see people with a mask on their chin or not covering their mouth or hanging from their ear. I don't get it, man. What's it going to take, man?
I think it's a lack of discipline. It's a lack of it's arrogance to a deadly degree. I think the two greatest ills you can have is ignorance and arrogance, and it is real. I too have lost family members. I've had two a sibling and his wife that contracted it, but I've had two cousins who passed away from it, and quite honestly, I believe I've had it. I was in New York in February, March of last year, and came back and was I mean just dreadfully sick, and me and my wife both. And it's at the time we weren't testing, but it wasn't the flu, the weakness, the fever. I mean it was unreal, but we worked our way through it. But my thoughts now is that people um, everything to me is a function of leadership. Okay. If the leadership tells you that this is real and to take it seriously, and the social media can be toned down to a degree where it's like, hey, you can't refute this because it's science. It's leadership and science who are both saying it's a real deal. But if you have a confusion, there are people who will believe anything. I mean, particularly if your leadership says it, or social media says it, or your news station says it, they'll believe anything. But my issue is it doesn't discriminate. I mean, whether you can be a smart person, you can be a dumb person, you can be ignorant, you can be arrogant, it doesn't care. You may not believe in it, but guess what? It believes in you.
Oh, no, this COVID thing is fair. It doesn't care where you come from, how much money you make, what you look like, or who you believe in. If if you don't do the things required to protect yourself, it'll get you. So, it's interesting you talk about leadership. Like, yeah, okay, we're both in the military. We know the value of a leader. However, I don't need a leader to tell me what to do. If I know there's a virus out there and somebody tells me that I need to take these precautions in order to not get sick. I don't need, just because the leader, the president, the governor, the mayor, whoever isn't taking the precautions, I'm not necessarily going to follow just because they're not doing that. So that piece right there, I don't understand. I mean, you choose not to wear a mask, so be it. That doesn't mean that it's okay for me. And that's what I really don't get. I mean, people are dying. Dude, we only lost, I'm going to say, 50 some odd thousand in the Vietnam War. I'm not sure in Korea. I mean, World War II probably lost more than 250,000 lives. But it's something that we can relate to. Just about 5 times as many that died in the Vietnam War have died since about March. I mean, what more does it take for people to know that it's real? We've had smart people who it's their job to study this stuff, get on the news, and say, this virus, you need to maintain social distance, don't go in crowded and unventilated places, you need to wear a mask, don't go in large gatherings. That increases the opportunity or the chance, or decreases the chance that you won't get it, you won't get sick, and or you won't die. So I don't understand just because one person deems not to wear a mask, why is everybody else falling in line?
I think it again. I mean, I think it's a function of leadership, because when you have varying opinions about whether it really is, the COVID is real, and you don't enforce, and I'm trying not to target a particular demographic, but when you have people who are so arrogant, where it's like, well, it violates my constitutional rights, to wear a mask. I mean, the Wolverine militia in Michigan, basically one of their major complaints was that you are forcing us to wear a mask, and you're trying to look. I'm trying to save your life,
Okay, but even that, nobody's forced to wear a mask. I mean, there are stores and restaurants that say, hey, listen, if you come through this door, you gotta have a mask on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you don't have to go to that store or to that restaurant or to that establishment. So I mean, we're not really being forced. I would just say it's highly encouraged. So I mean, I don't understand. But like I said, but the thing is this: people are dying for real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People are dying for real, and it's picking up right now. I think a couple of days ago, 1,700 people
Mm-hmm.
in the United States of America in one day lost their life. Man, I think that's about 4 major airline crashes in one day. 4 airplanes, full, max capacity, crash in one day. 1,700. I did some math earlier. I read that they believe the first COVID death in the United States was around about the early part of February. So a couple of days ago, I just, taking my calculator, doing some math. I like numbers. We've lost an average of about, depending on when you start, 871 people per day. Every day. It's now the highest. It kills more people than I think than any other disease right now. I think it's past heart disease. I mean, what's it take, man?
I don't know. I spent a lot of time in Africa, and it's like Sudan is like the epicenter of diseases, cholera, yellow fever, Ebola, whatever, and you see how it spreads when ignorant people either refuse to acknowledge it or refuse to take the right precautions, and it spreads like wildfire. I mean, it doesn't sink in until a large preponderance of the population starts to get infected and they die. And I think in this particular situation, I mean, it's happening now, but I hate to say this, but I saw the Million Man Mega March the other day, and very few people were wearing a mask. I mean, you were boldly going out, in defiance, not wearing your mask, not social distancing, and basically I'm here and I don't care what science says. And it's like, until you catch something, or until you die, or until your family member dies, or until you take it back to a family member who may have a pre-existing condition and they die. You know, but it's this ignorance and arrogance is the two things that will kill us all. It's not that fucking difficult to wear a mask. You know, I mean, you know, you embrace the suck. You know, so we can get over this. But if you don't do it, people are going to die. And if you don't believe, just do your research. Stop listening to just, you know, one or two sources. Do your research. You know, check with the experts. You know, verify. But if you're just going to go by what somebody says on television, you know, then, and you refuse to believe that exists, I mean, well, it's on you.
Well, at this stage of the game, it's not like you have to dig to find out about whether or not this is an actual thing. Okay, this is not a hoax or a rumor or a joke. This is a virus that it's a pandemic, which, you know, due to the definition of the word, means it has encompassed the globe. Every continent on the face of the earth is dealing with this, so it's real. You know, and like I say, I don't, you know, I can listen to somebody on TV because, like you, I don't want to go out and be stupid and not protect myself and get something. Now, you know, I might get it and be asymptomatic. Mm-hmm. And then not do anything to me, but I take it home to my wife, or my daughter, or anybody else that I come into contact with, and give it to them. Matter of fact, typically in November, I go home and visit a couple of my friends from high school. Mm-hmm. You know, we call it a alumni weekend, fellas weekend, what have you. We canceled it this year because two of us have to fly to Chicago. Mm-hmm. We did not want to get on airplanes. Mm-hmm. And then one of the things that we do when we're home is we visit, you know, their mother, and she would cook us breakfast. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I said, I don't want to see her. I would never forgive myself if I go home, we laugh, talk, we have breakfast, and then I come back, and for whatever reason, sometime shortly thereafter, if she were to get the virus, I would never forgive myself. So it's not just about me protecting myself. It's also about me protecting people that I care about. So I mean, it's real. I don't understand what's all the you know, the argument about, what's all the defiance about. I mean, I would have to believe there can't be many people in this country now that are more than 1 or 2 degrees of separation away from somebody that they know or know of that's lost their life for real.
Well, I go back to those 2 core tenets: is ignorance and arrogance. You mentioned about you would hate to take the disease back and affect one of your loved ones. And I'm not going to mention the name of the person, but a good friend of mine, he said his uncle contracted the disease and died from it. But his uncle got it from his son, who brought it into the household. The son was so distraught at the the funeral, is that he killed himself.
At a funeral?
At a funeral.
At the funeral?
At the funeral. You know, so I mean, it's like, you know, I can understand, okay, you're some young stud and stuff, and you think that you're, you know, I'm invincible, and this is just for people who are in bad shape.
Everybody in their 20s thinks they're going to live forever.
Everybody in their 20s, yes, it is.
I'm not saying the 30s are off, but for sure.
In your 20s,
if you're 20-something.
I'm invincible, you know? Yeah.
So, okay, so Thanksgiving coming up. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, obviously we're not doing, the last couple years we've done a really nice, huge Thanksgiving thing at a beachfront property with about 22 people. Okay, we're not doing that. It's just going to be my immediate family, but my son doesn't live in our house. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I had a conversation the other day with my wife. I said, you know, do we really want him to come home? It's my son, who I love with all my heart, but, you know, I do not know how he moves. I mean, I trust him not. Now, I do believe that any of us that have come this far without contracting the virus, we have figured out how not to get it. Mm-hmm. We've limited our interaction with others. We're following rules, staying out of small, enclosed, unventilated areas. We're maintaining social distance. We're wearing a mask. We're washing our hands. We're doing everything that the smart people
Mm-hmm.
on TV tell us not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mean, obviously my son hasn't got it, so I think he's smart too. But let's just say my son, much younger than me, maybe he's a carrier, and maybe his body is strong enough to fight everything off.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas maybe me, my wife, and or my daughter don't quite have the same strength that he has, and it gets us. Matter of fact, I have a friend of mine, that had the virus, and he got it from a girlfriend and the girlfriend's daughter. They went to some family event up in New York, which at one point in time was the epicenter
Mm-hmm.
in the U.S. for it.
Mm-hmm.
They came back, spent some time with him. He had it the worst of all three. The little girl wasn't, the school age girl, elementary school age girl, was barely phased by it. The mother, an adult, she had it, was down for a minute. My buddy was combat ineffective
Mm-hmm.
for over 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finally saw him step foot out the house, he still was saying, "Man, I got some lingering infection. It's just not over yet. I mean, I feel better than I felt the past few weeks, but I don't feel 100% now."
Mm-hmm.
So I think about that. Okay, my son comes home. I got a dad who's in his mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen him since January. And I wouldn't even waste my time to drive to where he is right now because he probably wouldn't let me in the house.
Yeah.
I ain't mad at it.
I don't need to be. Don't need to be.
I ain't mad at him, but I mean, but once again, like I say, I wouldn't go see him right now because if I don't care how he got it after that, if he got it, I would have to assume he got it from me, and I would never forgive myself.
There you go. There you go. I'm seeing this more and more that the disease or the virus affects people in different ways. I don't know if it's a genetic issue. I don't know if it's your physical health or whatever. But some people can catch it even with pre-existing conditions, and they can get over this. But some people it will kill you. And 250,000 is proof enough that it can take your life. But just I must kind of switch gears here a little bit. I'm looking at the religious community, where people are saying, "I'm going to church regardless, I don't care because God's going to protect me." How does that fit with the concern and welfare of your fellow man when you might beat it, but you might pass to somebody else who exponentially pass to someone else? How can you say that's God's will? It just doesn't make sense anymore. And it's just like, people, I don't want to say people are stupid. So I have to say, you're ignorant and you're arrogant. And you're ignorant not because you're not smart, it's because you refuse to acknowledge that this exists. And in your arrogance, you're like, I'm going to defy the laws and I'm going to defy the rules of science and I'm going to do what I want to do, regardless.
Well, I think some of this comes down to the fact that, like you, I've traveled. I've been to a couple other countries, okay? And, Americans, we're spoiled. We're very impatient.
Oh, yeah.
We're used to all our creature comforts. We're not accustomed to being inconvenienced for any length of time. So this is new for everybody who's alive right now. I guess there are a handful of people who were alive for the plague back in the early 1900s. But for everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
we've never been inconvenienced like this, not having the opportunity to do the things that we're used to. I go to the gym, restaurant, or church. So we're not used to that as Americans. We take that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have issue with that. There are other countries who their methods in duty have been a lot more stringent than here. Where I've heard there's some place where they arrest people if you did. They make it, they will fine you if you don't have a mask, or they're shutting things down. And those people deal with it, but it's like here, no, I have a right, and I think a lot of times we get rights and privileges confused. Certain things are your rights, certain things are privileges, and privileges can be taken away. But I don't know. I sit back and I watch this. I mean, there's nobody who doesn't know about this.
Sure.
Either car radio, however you watch TV, cable, streaming, your phone, your computer, your tablet, everybody knows because they're only talking like for the most part, they're really only talking about three things on TV: Black Lives Matter, politics, coronavirus. That's the lion's share of everything that's on print media, electronic media, visual media. Those are the things they're talking. So there's nobody who can say, "Well, I didn't know."
Well, I mean, I think the issue now is that, and I fault the media, I fault the leadership, is that the truth doesn't matter anymore. I can say that, hey, you can put all the facts there. You can have the experts who are sitting there explaining what's going on. You can have numerous mechanisms to put out information, medical support, and all this, but people just have this new dynamic of like, well, I don't believe that. That's fake news, or or your leadership may be supporting, or may be adversarial or refuting science. Just like you said in North Dakota. It's like, well, you have this outbreak that's out of control, but your leadership is not even saying, hey, look, this is real, folks. We need to do this, this, this. In my estimation, we should have been implementing draconian measures from day one. It's like going to war. If you go to war, you don't want to bring the same measure of force against your force. You want to have an overwhelming force, and you want to destroy him and destroy his morale and kill him. And then he's like, I give up. What's my option? Well, we're going to help build your country up, But in this case, it's like you're playing political war where you end up in a freaking war 15, 20 years when it could have ended maybe 2 or 3 years if you went in the right way. And it's the same thing we're going through right now. We didn't take it serious. Or I can say we didn't. I mean, science did. Most people, a lot of people did. But a lot of people are not who are affecting other people. And, and again, it's all about leadership, ignorance, and arrogance.
Well, I mean, leadership plays a role. I mean, if every time I saw the commander, the mayor, the governor, the president, if he had a mask on, he's leading, or she is leading by example, then things might be a little bit different. Yeah, there's always going to be some folks who, unless you make them do it, aren't going to do right. But we could have slowed this thing down. Just like they had the Sturgis motorcycle rally. Anyway, a bunch of motorcycles, and I ride, and I'm planning to do that at some point in time. A bunch of people from all over the country went to Sturgis. While they were there for, I think it was pretty close to a week, they partied and they had a good time. They hung out, they fellowshiped, they hugged it up, they dapped it up, they did whatever, went to restaurants, and with just a mass of humanity. And then it was over, and they took that virus back to everybody community
they went to,
on the mainland 48, probably Alaska, and some folks probably came from Hawaii as well. So they took it back home. So I mean, why that was allowed to go on. But then, like I told you earlier, once again, that was in South Dakota. And the governor in South Dakota said, hey, I have no need to make people in my state uncomfortable. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. We can go business as usual. Now their numbers are off the chart. And even now, even when I read the article early this morning, that their numbers are off the chart. They're still not institutionally measured to put a halt to it.
I read the other day, and I saw it on television in North Dakota. It was a medical care nurse, and she was saying that people are coming in here and they're dying from it, and they refuse to believe it's real while they're dying. I mean, if that isn't the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. She said you should be trying to be contacting your people and just saying, hey, look, I'm leaving this world, but they refuse to believe that COVID exists. So it's I mean it's never one thing. It's multiple issues. Like I keep hitting on the leadership thing, and I'm really big on leadership, as you are. You know, um, but it's
However, I still got a mind of my own.
you have a mind of your own. You have a mind of your own, and we all do. But the issue is it's the measure of wearing a mask cuts down dramatically the spread of the virus. It's something simple as that, just washing your hands, just doing very simple things. And I guess I've in my travels I've been around so many different countries where I've seen draconian measures put in place. In Africa it's like, hey, you know what? When I tell you to do something, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you.
Well, I don't know that draconian measures work because I don't know that I want to live in those places. But let me go to something else. You talk about leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the influence of media. As of late, there's a phenomenon that we've been hearing for about the last 4 years of fake news. Now, granted, I'm not saying that everything that I watch or hear on TV or I read is true. Matter of fact, my dad taught me as a kid, don't believe anything you hear, only half what you see.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, what he's saying is, kind of, trust and trust but verify.
Right.
Do your homework.
Right.
But the election, and we talked there, we're not going to go deep on politics, but this was a normal election like any other presidential election. But how come this one is one person or a group of people are saying fraud? We didn't get a chance to see. And people are hearing this stuff on TV or radio or reading it and taking it as fact. When a lot of this stuff, when you listen to the media source you listen to, and they say they're cheating, they're lying, they're stealing. That's the only channel that you watch.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that.
You believe that.
Okay.
You believe that.
But if had you turned to another channel, they say no, there's no lying, there's no cheating, there's no stealing going on. So then at least I would think a rational thinking person says, okay, well let me check out one more channel. Because let me see if I can get a 2 out of 3. Or maybe with this level of conflicting information, maybe I need to do my own research. But I think we're in a situation now where people are just believing everything they hear. And if people hear something, whether it's the truth or not, they take it on face value as fact.
They run with it. I mean, it's you said a rational person would think, and I'm starting to see now. It's like I hate to bring this up, but the Million Mega Man March. I mean, I was kind of appalled by like all these people with no mask out there, and it's like they're saying that, well, the election was rigged, and okay, that's your right. A recount is your right, but when all the states are saying that no, this did not happen, and our election process was very thorough, when the people that you put in power to monitor the process saying the process was correct, but you still refuse to believe, and it's like it's the dividing lines in our country are scary now, because at one point I could argue politics with you and go out and have a beer and like, hey, we have different opposing views. Now it's like either side demonizes the other. It's like, you're gonna hate me now because of my political beliefs, and it seems that we're going that way, and it really scares me because it's like I don't think we've ever been this divided ever. Maybe during the Civil War, something like that. But I mean, I can remember the times when I was going to Kershi-Kanavan right after 9/11.
To what?
Kershi-Kanavan. It's in Uzbekistan. It was a jump point into Afghanistan right after 9/11. And I've never seen the nation more unified in my life. I was living in Georgia at the time, and it's like I couldn't go in a restaurant and buy food if I had my uniform on. People were crying. We were all crying, you know. I mean, we were one nation, you know, that you know, we were tight, man. Everyone was just like, we wanted to get back, you know. We wanted to protect our own. And now it's like, wow, we're going at each other like tooth and nail, you know.
Well, and I understand what you're saying there. There have been several times in this country where I guess you know, no matter what your political affiliation was, the fact that folks were American was the most important thing. Like I watch a lot of stuff on the History Channel and Military Channel about World War II.
Mm-hmm.
During World War II, there were certain food items that you couldn't buy in the store because they sent all that stuff overseas for the troops to eat.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say ladies couldn't get the nylon stockings these were because that was used, all those materials were used to make things for the war, like, you know, airplane and truck tires. And, you know, they had the big thing, you know, buy war bonds, support the war effort. And everybody jumped on board.
Yeah.
It wasn't Republicans buy war bonds. It was like, if you're an American, you know, the old, you know, the Uncle Sam, you know, support the team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this country is capable of doing that if it's led properly. If there's a cause that everybody can get behind.
Oh, so we're going back to leadership now. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's key.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because like, you know, in now, granted, too, this country is also capable of being separated, or there being very firm dividing lines, firm divisions among the populations and the way people. I mean, we could probably look at this and say, you know, I've never seen anything like this before. But if you remember back, or if we've seen it in the black and white TV days, you know, in the '60s when there was riots and there was civil rights and, you know, Martin Luther King and people getting dogs sicked on them. I'm pretty sure if we were old enough then, I'm guessing, I'm not sure, it probably had a very similar feel to what we feel right now. There were people who probably thought that black people, people of color, deserved rights, and there were people who said, no, we want to keep things the way they are. So I don't know that this is really a new phenomenon.
I mean, it may not be new to the current generation. I mean, but I can remember that back in, my brother was in a riot in North Carolina A&T, you know, and there was a major battle between the Black Panthers and the police force and the National Guard. And I can remember those times. I mean, they were very divisive, you know, but now it has a different air to it. And I think a lot of it's because of the media has such a power to influence the opinions of people and refute facts, you know, refute science, whatever the case may be. And it's like, and it's really it's disheartening, and it's like we discussed before. There are friends. I mean, I was in the military with, you know. War buddies, you know, they were friends who, well, as a contractor, I mean, you know, we had each other's backs, you know, and stuff, and now all of a sudden it's like, I'm demonized because of my political beliefs. I mean, we can't even discuss them anymore. We can't even have a conversation where we're sharing each other's views, and I think that's the most critical problem right there, because if all I hear now from the far right is that anybody who is a Democrat is a socialist. And it's the most furthest thing from the truth I've ever heard in my life. I mean, I'll just go out. I'm a moderate Democrat, right? I probably have more guns than a lot of, you know, right wingers, you know, because I like to shoot, you know, and I like to protect my family, you know. But in the same sense, you know, I'm a Christian. I want to help my fellow man, you know, but only if you want help. Only if you're willing to put your foot forward, you know what I mean? But the resources should be there. But I think a lot of people on the far right would have some of the same viewpoints that I do, or a lot of us do, if you would just take the time to talk and stop fighting.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you just said right there. And I think pretty much in any walk of life. Person on this side, person on this side. If they really sit down and have a conversation, they really take a look, they're probably a lot more similar
Mm-hmm.
than they are different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and I don't know. Uh, I think the big deal with, people always say, you don't talk politics, you don't talk religion. Well, for one of the things, there's no there's no rationale, there's no logic in politics or religion. So we can't really come to a right or wrong. We're going to constantly be arguing. I mean, I can tell you, it's raining outside. We don't have to argue about it. We can go look out the window and it's
Mm-hmm.
raining, so that's over. But if I tell you my religion is better, my religion is better than yours, or my political affiliation is better than yours, or my view on this particular uh, issue, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. There's no logic there. I mean, there's no way we can sit down and actually say that, you know, abortion or funding for the military is right, because it's a decision that we make based on our beliefs and values. There's no right, wrong. There's no up, down, on, off, left, right. It's the way you feel about certain things, and that's based on your environment, where you come from, what you bring to the party when that issue is brought up. How you view it is going to determine how you feel. And you're half a century old, even if you're 20 years old, more likely than not, I'm not going to change your mind if for no other reason you're not going to let me beat you. But you showed up at my house with an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to go home saying, you know what, Derek was right, I was wrong. Some people, have the courage or the intelligence or the ability to listen to what you said to me, bounce it off what my thoughts were, and ascertain that, you know what, I didn't know all that information. Based on what you told me, you're right, I'm wrong, I'm changing point. Very few people are going to do that.
I don't think it has to be such a black and white issue as you're right and I'm wrong. The issue is these discussions should lead to an awareness of another opinion that may not have influenced me at that particular time, but at least I can take that opinion and say, you know what, I kind of understand where he's coming from right now. I mean, I give an example. I mean, we had a discussion on reparations, and I was like, hell no. I mean, what for? Now that I've done my homework, and now that you have enlightened me very strongly, I might add, you let me know what's going on, and now I'm looking at the poverty level, and I'm looking at the number of people of color that are in jail, in prisons, and the dynamic that puts them in that piece. There has to be a major turnaround, somewhat that will benefit all of America, But I'm doing my homework now, but I'm more pro reparations now, but not in the sense that I want to give someone a monthly stipend. I want the opportunity to present themselves and people to take advantage of it. But if you don't, hey, that's on you, But I took the time to listen to what you had to say, and I was very adamant about that, because my issue was, look, we made it, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It was not easy, 22 years in the military is not easy. I'm suffering now, health issues, emotional issues from 22 years in the military. But we did it, and we grinded out. We embraced the suck. We did what we had to do. And a lack of discipline to do those things just unnerves me, But in the same breath, we came from good families. So
that's a topic where I have some opinions on it, but they're not real firm opinions. Now, I can't say, obviously, there's no argument to the fact that people that look like me were and still are negatively impacted
mm-hmm.
by the institution of slavery, by the institution of, Jim Crow laws, by the institution of mass incarceration. But I'm not smart enough to give the answer or the solution of how to fix it because it's bigger than me. Because I don't know how you deal with several generations of a family that have been negatively impacted. How do you fix that? So I mean, it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real thing. But
It's a real thing.
I'll say to you that me sitting here in your house, us doing this thing, I'm not smart enough to address that.
And that's a topic for another day. I mean, because I have to do my research and I have to come from a position of facts and understanding and the impact. And I'll tell you this: my daughter was a social worker in Atlanta and D.C. and she laid this out. She showed me firsthand what generational poverty can do to a group of people. And the evils that can be, the offshoots from that. Whether it's drugs, it's abuse, it's violence, it's incest, whatever the case may be. And I was really surprised. She was explaining this all to me. So reparations is very sensitive with me. And it's something that we will probably not discuss any further tonight because it's we don't know enough to to say hey or nay.
I'm only so smart. I'm not ready to have that conversation right now on video and embarrass myself by being thoroughly uneducated on it on although I know it's a thing.
It's a thing.
And I do know that there have been other groups of people that have received some level of reparations here in the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
That I know of.
Indians, American Indians.
Japanese. They were interned during World War II. For two. So, anyway, it's about that time.
It's about that time.
Thank y'all for watching.
Thank you for watching. We appreciate you all. And
He's Etzel. I'm Derek.
And welcome to the Unpopular